Have you ever received a message and felt that immediate rush of, I need to deal with this right now? That feeling is not an accident. It is by design. Today, we are looking at why scams actually work, even on people who know better, and how to build the one habit that stops them in their tracks. Keep watching.
Welcome to Rise and Shine, your daily business tech boost with me, Charly Leetham. If you're a small business owner looking to simplify technology and get real, actionable advice from someone with 35 years of IT experience, you're in the right place. Every episode, I'll dive into tools and systems like email, CRM, marketing and tracking, and I'll break them down into bite-sized tips you can use straight away. Your time is valuable, so let's get straight to the point. It's time to work smarter, not harder.
Rise and Shine. It's your business tech boost with me, Charly Leetham. Episode number 699. It is Mindset Monday, and we're talking about scams again. Look, I know we all know they exist. I know we know they're getting more sophisticated, and yet we still manage to fall for one every so often. I find even myself looking at something and thinking, oh no, I'd better get on to that. And thankfully, I haven't been caught in a while, but now that I've said that, you know what's going to happen. Today, I'm actually going to talk about why scams and phishing attempts work and how you can train yourself to avoid those traps. I often say that scams are designed to trick people who are not paying attention, but that's not entirely true. Scams are designed to trigger a response before the person has time to think about whether that response is the right one. In other words, they work by targeting the part of our brain that reacts before the rational thinking part has a chance to catch up. A little bit like me and snakes. I see a snake, I react, and then the thinking part kicks in and goes, "Don't be silly, girl." Anyway, would you be surprised if I told you that I think scams pretty much work on the same principles as marketing? That is, they work on non-human behaviors. Scams, though, turn that on its head a bit. When someone receives a message that creates a sense of urgency that appears to come from someone in authority or presents a threat with consequences that feel immediate and severe, our natural response is to act first and ask questions later. It's simply how our brain is wired. We evolved to respond quickly to threats, and scammers have worked out how to use that wiring against us. A business owner who would never sign a contract without reading it properly can still click a link in a message that looks like it came from their bank because that message said their account was about to be locked and they had 30 minutes to fix it. The urgency overrides the caution, and by the time the rational brain has caught up, the click's already happened. It gets worse when you factor in the reality of how most business owners operate from day to day. Fatigue, stress, long hours, constant context switching between tasks, all of these increase the likelihood of making a reactive decision. A scam that might be obvious at 9 in the morning after a good night's sleep, I don't know if that's the case for me to be honest, looks completely different at 4 in the afternoon in the middle of a chaotic day. It gets worse when you factor in the reality of how most business owners operate day to day. Fatigue, stress, long hours, constant context switching between tasks. All of these increase the likelihood of making a reactive decision. A scam that might be obvious at 9 in the morning after a good night's sleep, if anyone knows what a good night's sleep is these days, can look completely different at 4 in the afternoon or in the middle of a chaotic day when there are 15 other things competing for our attention. Scammers know this, which is why so many messages are designed to land during times when people are already stretched thin and operating on autopilot. The question is, can we override our natural tendencies to beat this? We know that scams rely on urgency, authority, and fear to get a reaction. It helps to understand how each of these triggers actually play out in practice because they show up in slightly different ways, and recognizing them is the first step to not reacting to them. Urgency is probably the most common, and honestly, it's everywhere. The message, not the business, the message that says your account will be suspended in 24 hours, the email that says a payment failed and needs to be resolved immediately, the text that says a parcel could not be delivered, and if you don't respond today, it's going to get returned. Every single one of these is designed to create a time pressure that makes you feel like you can't afford to stop and think. And that's the point. Because the moment you stop to think is the moment the scam falls apart. Authority works just a little bit differently, but man, is it effective. This is where a message appears to come from someone or something you already trust. Your bank, the revenue service, ATO in Australia, your hosting provider, a supplier you use regularly, or even someone senior in your own business. The scammer is borrowing the trust that already exists between you and that entity and using that trust to bypass the scrutiny you would normally apply to a message from someone you don't know. And this is the reason CEO fraud works so well. An email that looks like it came from the boss asking for an urgent payment gets actioned because people don't want to question the person in charge, especially when the request feels time sensitive. Now, this CEO one, it's actually one I've experienced with a business. The IT guy would regularly test employees' responses to scam and phishing attempts by sending out requests for gift cards from a throwaway email address that looks like they came from the C suite, someone in the C suite. I can hear you now, Charlie. That wouldn't work. Surely people wouldn't do that, but you would be surprised. At least one person each time would go out, buy the gift cards, and respond to the email. The third one, or the third trigger, is fear. The threat of financial loss, the threat of legal action, the threat of losing access to something critical. That ties the whole thing together. Fear narrows your focus down to the problem and the solution being offered, and everything else just disappears. You might say that your amygdala goes into overdrive. You don't notice that the email address is slightly wrong or that the language is a little bit off. You might not notice that the link goes somewhere unexpected because your brain is locked onto the threat and the fastest way to make it go away. The thing to remember is that most scams don't rely on one of these triggers in isolation. They instead layer them. An email that looks like it comes from the ATO could say that there's an outstanding tax debt that must be resolved in 48 hours or legal action will commence. And if it's not the ATO, just insert your own revenue service in there. That type of threat uses authority, urgency, and fear all working together in that one single message. Each one reinforces the other, and the combined effect is powerful enough to override the caution of someone who, under normal circumstances, would absolutely know better. If our brains are wired to react this way, can we actually do something about it? Sure, we can, but it's not about being smarter or more vigilant, though being vigilant is a good thing. It's also about building a habit that kicks in before the emotional response takes over. The single most effective thing you can build is what I call a pause habit. When something lands in your inbox or notifications, wherever they may be, and that something triggers the immediate feeling of, I need to deal with this right now, that's the signal to stop. That feeling of urgency, that immediate feeling of, I've got to do something, is the signal to stop. Don't act, don't click, don't reply. Just stop for a moment. The urgency you are feeling is exactly what the scammer is counting on, and the pause is what breaks the cycle. It doesn't need to be a long pause either. Even 30 seconds, even though that can feel like a really long time, can be enough to shift from reacting to thinking, and that shift is where scams lose their power. The next part of this habit is the verification. A lot of people can get to that pause and then move on and go and do something else. It's important to do that verification. If you receive a message that says it's from your bank, Don't use the phone number or the link in the message to verify it. That's part of the scam. Go to your bank's website directly, call the number on the back of your card, or use contact details you already have on file. The same applies to the ATO or whatever your tax agency is in your country, to suppliers, and even to your family. Yes, it should apply to anyone. If the message is legitimate, it will still be there in 5 minutes after you have confirmed it through a channel you trust. If it's not legitimate, that 5 minutes will save you from may well save you from a very expensive mistake. For business owners, it's also worth thinking about this in terms of your team. Your team members are subject to exactly the same triggers and wiring, and they may well be targeted to gain access to business assets or information. Have a conversation with your team about what to do when something feels urgent, because that's more important than any cybersecurity training video. It gives people permission to slow down and check before they act. That gift card test I mentioned earlier works precisely because people feel the pressure of authority and urgency combined, and they might not have been told that it's okay to question it. In fact, they may have been trained not to question it, and that's something you need to think about. So make it okay to question it and be part of how the business operates. The last piece is accepting that this isn't a one-off fix. Building that pause habit is going to take practice, and there will be days when fatigue or stress or a particularly well-crafted message catches you off guard. It's not failure, that's just being human. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to make the pause your default response to anything that tries to rush you, so that over time it all becomes automatic. The scammers are counting on you to react. The best thing you can do is decide right now that you're going to stop doing that. Alrighty, guys, what do you think? Have I asked more questions than I answered? Is that the right way? Yep, that's the right way around. I hope so, because that's how we learn and grow. Have you been caught out by a scam or had a close call? What was it that made you stop, or what was it that made you click? I'd love to know. I'd love to know how you handled it all. I'd just like to understand the experiences that people are having too. Leave comments wherever you're watching or listening to this episode. If this episode was useful to you, I would truly love a like, and maybe you could also share it with a friend. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button now. And ring that bell so you find out when I drop more content. If you need help with any of this, I'm here to help. If you haven't already booked your free 30-minute breakthrough session, you can do that by visiting my website, askcharlyleetham.com, and clicking on the button in the top right-hand corner. Or if you have already booked your session and used it, I'm available to hire. So reach out to book more time with me. I would absolutely love to help. That's it for today. Be safe, be secure. Look at those try not to get caught by the scams when they come through. They come thick and fast at some days. And I will see you all on Wednesday for a walkthrough Wednesday. Bye, guys.
Hey there, thanks so much for tuning in to Rise and Shine, your daily business tech boost. I hope today's episode gave you some actionable insights that will make your business tech work smarter for you. If you found value, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other small business owners who could use a daily boost. For more tips, tools, and resources, visit www.askcharlyleetham.com. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and let's make tech simple together.